Once I initially got elected in 1999, we were sort of looking at what were the issues on campus that were sort of really grievances for students. And one of the major complaints that we were getting from all of the clubs and associations that were involved with the student union had to do with the Marriott Sodexo exclusivity agreement. And what that meant for the student groups was that if they wanted to have an event on campus involving food, so for example, the wine and cheese sort of events that so many student groups have, they would have to buy that food from Marriott Sodexo, which maybe wouldn't be such a problem, except that Marriott Sodexo was charging just the most ridiculous prices to our student groups. So what that meant was that student groups on campus were having their very small budgets basically being eaten away by this multinational corporation. One other example I'll give you of that is that if a student group wanted to have a speaker in the auditorium in H110, and that speaker wanted to drink water, we were not allowed to provide them with a free pitcher of water. We had to buy it from Marriott Sodexo for $24, okay? So that was one of the examples that was really, I think, an outrage for many students on campus. And then when we started looking into this issue a little bit more, we started to discover that Marriott Sodexo, in addition to sort of being a real drain on student groups here on campus, were involved in things in the United States, namely the private prison industry, that we felt really an organization like that had no business in a public university. So we were also very concerned that we were sort of helping an institution that was profiting from, imprisoning human beings, that we were helping them make profits. And our vision of a public institution was very different. We believe that universities are truly public institutions here to serve public interests. So that really became kind of the rallying cry, for our initial strike action, or one of the rallying cries. So there was also a fee that had been brought in that we were fighting against. But the Sodexo issue was one of the huge things that really mobilized students, brought them out first in our referendum, where we got, I think, something like 90% support for our demand to cancel the Marriott exclusivity agreement. And then in a General Assembly, where we managed to get quorum, which hadn't been achieved in many years, in a CSU General Assembly, and then had a massive vote in favor of a strike, the demands of which included canceling the Marriott exclusivity agreement. And out of that strike, we had negotiations with the university administration, and we actually succeeded in convincing them to get rid of the Marriott Sodexo exclusivity agreement. So this was a small victory here on campus, because it meant that the student groups were now in control of what food they were going to offer, and could basically go and get the best prices that they could. Now, unfortunately, it meant that it was sort of a temporary victory in terms of keeping big multinational corporations out of Concordia, because it didn't result in Marriott Sodexo leaving. And soon after, another big corporation, Chartwell's, came in, and though they weren't given the same kind of exclusivity agreement, they also controlled much of the food service here on campus. Which is sort of another issue of concern for us, because we believe that the university is fundamentally a public institution, as I mentioned, and that basically the university going out and soliciting money from private institutions or from private corporations ultimately compromises the public mission of universities. So just to give you another example, like if we think about this giant corporation that's involved in private prisons, what if there had been a PhD student here at Concordia that wanted to do some research on the private prison industry? What sort of pressures would that put on the university to fund his research or not? And these kinds of pressures we had been seeing had resulted in actually a researcher, just prior to my getting elected here, a researcher at the University of Toronto, what was her name again? oh, I can't remember her name right now, but she had been pressured by a pharmaceutical company to basically bury the results of her research, which found that a drug that this company Apotex wanted to put out that was a dangerous, she had found that it was dangerous to human health. And the corporation, the pharmaceutical company, basically pressured the university to bury her research, defund her, lock her doors, and basically push her out. So we were seeing at this time, and the Canadian Association of University Teachers had been ringing alarm bells about this. And so we were seeing concretely what are the effects of corporate funding of post-secondary education. And we basically determined this is a threat to academic freedom. So in that sense, we saw that this is something in general that had to be opposed, and that we needed to stand up and advocate for a truly publicly funded university that would then sort of not have any sort of interest pushing against the public interest.